Hello everyone, this is Rick and welcome to Astral Club. This video will be called Astral Projection Challenges. I was going to call it Astral Projection Problems, but I prefer the word challenges and it has a little bit more of a positive spin to it. Before we get started, I'd like to thank two new patrons of Astral Club. Pete Lovick is Astral Master status, and Kat Walker is an Astral Scout. Thank you very much. Your contributions are very much appreciated. If you feel moved to become a patron of Astral Club, the link will be in the description. Okay, let's get started. Now, when one astral projects or begins to attempt to astral project, it's very uncommon that you immediately succeed. Generally, you encounter a wide variety of impediments and challenges that interfere or sabotage your astral projection efforts. So let's discuss those, and perhaps if you're aware of what happens, it won't bother you as much, and ways and other things that you can do to avoid encountering these impediments to astral projection. I will be partially drawing on one of my favorite books for this subject, and that book is Astral Dynamics, A New Approach to Out-of-the-Body Experience by Robert Bruce. This is one of my favorite books in my astral projection library. And so we're going to be partially using a chapter on astral projection challenges for this video. If you're interested, buy the book. It's pretty darn good. It was published, at least my copy was, back in 1999. The first challenge that you face, and we've discussed this before, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, is fear. Fear is the number one enemy or challenge or problem associated with astral projection. So many astral projections are sabotaged or cut short because of fear. We've discussed in the past the best way to confront this fear is by watching astral projection videos, learning about astral projection, reading books about astral projection. The more you know, the easier it is to overcome the fear. Another problem, which is altogether too common, especially in our modern, busy city environments and even suburban environments, is quiet. Finding a calm, quiet place to astral project. In the city, you've got police sirens, neighbors slamming doors, arguing, playing loud music, you name it. The problem with all of these distractions is that the physical body's defense mechanism that we have discussed previously, that pulls an astral body back into the physical as a protective measure, is triggered by any stimulus of sound that is broadly interpreted as a possible threat. So outside of fear, I would say noise is probably the next biggest enemy. So if you want to astral project, try to find a place and time where you can experience quiet. I live in a rural area. I don't have traffic sounds, and it's quite beautiful and usually quite serene. But if I pick a time of day where neighbors are mowing the lawn, that might interfere with a projection. I understand this is going to be difficult for some people, but it's crucial. There's no way I can tell you to get around it. Now, it is possible that after long experience, you can lull your automated physical danger response into not interpreting a sound as a threat. If perhaps you live in a city and the outside traffic is so constant that perhaps it fades and it's now just part of the background, so it's no longer interpreted as a threat. But I have a hard time believing that a car horn sounding or a police siren wouldn't be interpreted as a threat. So a quiet environment is extremely important in order to astral project. Before I go on to the next astral projection challenge, I want to point out a little positive technique that we can place amongst all this presumably negative stuff, and that is the falling technique. I used it again last night to astral project. It is one of the easiest techniques you can use to astral project. It's very simple. When you get to the point where you are almost asleep, picture yourself and feel it as you jump over a cliff. Feel that hollow, slightly nauseous feeling that you get from free falling. If you can do that right before you fall asleep, you have a very high degree to have a chance at astral projecting. There's something about that feeling that is very reminiscent of the actual astral projection experience. So I just wanted to throw that little piece of positivity in there amongst all of these barriers to astral projection. Another situation that can upset or disturb people is the energy surge that is felt when you enter the vibratory stage. It can be interpreted as an energy surge that is enveloping your entire body, or it may be more localized in, say, your forehead, or in the torso, or in the area of the solar plexus. That is not a negative thing. It should not be interpreted as a negative thing. It is a stage right before astral projection. So the best thing you can do here is just realize that it's a positive step. The sensation itself is not unpleasant. It's just new. So if you're not used to it, you might show some sort of fear, which of course then would sabotage the experience. Another possible impediment is something you might call cobwebs. It's the feeling of having some sort of spider web, if you will, that is over your face. And I think it has to do with the shifting energy patterns right before you astral project. And your physical body, this is an unfamiliar sensation to it, so it's placing it into some sort of box that it is familiar with. Once again, this is a good sign and should not be feared. Another problem that can be experienced is a variety of pressures. There may be pressure in your chest, solar plexus, once again, the forehead, or even the whole head. There's nothing to worry about here. I think, once again, it's just the physical body trying to interpret changing energy patterns that it just hasn't experienced before. You may even feel a tight band around your head. Once again, this is not to be feared. You will not be injured. These are good signs. Don't interpret them negatively. The next one I have experienced from time to time myself, and that is breathing problems. You may have the sensation that you're not getting enough oxygen. I think sometimes I have even held my breath for some period of time through some sort of unconscious stimulus. Be aware that you're not going to suffer because of this. Your autonomic systems will take over. You won't suffocate, I guarantee you that. Um, the best thing to do here is to be lying in a position, if possible, where it is easy to breathe. For astral projection purposes, I would not recommend sleeping on your stomach. Not only does that suppress easy breathing, but it creates this weird pressure and also a weird psychology that it's almost like you're keeping yourself in when you sleep on your stomach, and that's the wrong idea here. So I usually do most of my projections from sleeping on my side. For some reason, when I sleep on my left side, I have a little bit more success than sleeping on my right. I don't know why. That's just something that affects me personally. If you can sleep on your back, which has always been a problem for me, but if you can, I would say that's probably the most ideal way to astral project from. There may be times where you are caught in the midst of a projection and it appears that you can't make a complete separation. That part of your astral body appears to be stuck to the physical. One of the explanations that I have come up with for that is you ate too heavy of a meal and your digestive process is interfering with your ability to raise your vibrations and then separate from the physical body. The best way to deal with that is not to eat a few hours or so before you astral project, or have a very light meal without heavy protein if you're intending to astral project in that period of time. So avoid big heavy steak dinners right before you wish to astral project. Another irritant is exit cramps and pain. I recall an astral projection. I was in the midst of projecting recently. I was half out and I got hit with a Charlie horse or a cramp, call it whatever you like. Of course, we've all experienced those. They're extremely painful. I don't know whether it was just happened to be a coincidence, but I suspect that some of the shifting energy patterns might cause a muscle spasm, especially if your potassium, magnesium levels are a little on the low side. So, what's the best way to avoid something like that happening? Well, make sure your potassium intake is up. Eat a banana or what have you to make sure that your potassium levels are high enough that you won't trigger a Charlie horse. Now, there are some things that are fairly easy to control or to be aware of that will assist you, or at least if you're aware of them, they won't fight against you. Jewelry. Wearing jewelry, watches, what have you, can impede a successful astral projection. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with this, and maybe it's because as a kid, I learned to not have anything to do with jewelry or watches or what have you. You don't want to fall asleep with that type of metal all over you. It interferes with the energy exchange process. It can also cause undue pressure. Now, you may be used to that pressure of that watch or earrings or anything else that you might be wearing. But when you're going through the stage where you're going to astral project, your body, for a brief period of time before you actually leave, can become extremely sensitive to any sort of things like jewelry and watches. Not only do they cause a sensation that can can cause problems, that can distract you, but metal also has small electric charges to it. And I suspect those are not going to assist an astral projector. So, if you have jewelry, watches, make sure you take those off and set them further away from your bed if you're going to astral project. Magnetic north is another question that I get from time to time. Personally, I even did an experiment at one point many years ago where I changed my bed's orientation, drove my brother and my mother nuts, but I was unable to come up with any sort of data that proved that having my bed, with my head pointed north was any better for astral projection than east or west or south or what have you. So, if you want to have it north, fine, but I don't think it's going to affect you one way or another. One thing that will affect your ability to astral project, unless you're extremely different from me and any other people that I've typically talked with, is the lunar cycle. That week around when the moon is going to be full, that has a big influence on your ability to astral project. I don't know about you, but when I look at a full moon on a dark night, it feels like I'm physically being drawn out of my body, just standing there looking at the moon. There's something about the psychology of that waxing moon and that full moon. It calls to us in a very primitive way. And I have found that astral projections are much more numerous during that week around the full moon than at any other time during the month. Has anyone ever experienced saliva problems? I have had times in my life when something as small as having an excess of saliva or having a dry mouth was enough of a distraction to prevent me from leaving my body. How can you deal with this? Well, turn off your heat at night or block up your hot air vents if you have hot air, like many people do as far as their heating systems are concerned. They tend to dry out your nasal passages and your mouth. Make sure you are well hydrated before you go to bed. That helps to keep some sort of an equilibrium there and avoid the dry mouth. And I think it also helps to create equilibrium so that you don't have too much saliva either. Because I think the overproduction of saliva might be the body's way of compensating for too little. So be well hydrated. However, make sure you urinate before you go to bed. I don't even care if you don't feel like you have to. You want to make sure you start off with an empty tank. Because in the category of problems, having a full bladder will prevent or cut short any astral projection that you wish to have. So be well hydrated, but not overly so. And make sure you empty out that tank before you get into bed. The next problem is a little bit more complicated. Sexual arousal. The whole subject of human sexuality can be a help or a hindrance to astral projection. Let me explain. It's been known for males as well as females that you may become sexually stimulated right before you actually astral project, and that might interfere with the process because now your body, which should be in a quiescent state, is becoming more active, and that will prevent astral projection. Now, one way to deal with that is to engage in sex if you have a partner, or to take matters into your own hands if that is necessary. However, here's another caveat. The wish or the idea of sex can be a very powerful motivator to get you out of your body. Remember when I gave an example quite a number of videos ago, where I said one idea to astral project was to deny yourself food for a period of time, or deny yourself water for a period of time. And then, or I even mentioned people who like, for instance, smoke marijuana. Deny yourself that if it's something you do on a regular basis. And then place the food, the water, the marijuana, what have you, in the kitchen. And as you fall asleep, tell yourself that if you can get there in your astral body, that when you return, you will reward yourself with that substance. I know when I was going through my teen years, I was very much geared up. And many times the idea of seeing young women in my travels would help me to get out of my physical body. It was like this unconscious, impulse that was just there to push me over the edge, to pull me out of my body and go in search of a young lady. This isn't something I would ordinarily recommend on a regular basis, but I wanted to discuss this area and the pluses and the minuses in its application. Now, if you choose to have sex before you fall asleep and astral project, it may have a deleterious effect because you may be in a situation where you are now so relaxed that you fall into a deep sleep. And the problem with a deep sleep, of course, is that you're beyond the point at which it's easy to astral project from, because the best place to astral project from is in a light sleep state where your body is completely relaxed and asleep, but your mind can become awake and conscious and then will you into the vibrational state. Or at least if the vibrational state kicks in, you will be aware enough to take advantage of it and get out of your body. So you could try any variations of the whole sexual situation and determine if it helps or harms you. At any rate, hey, even if you don't project, you had some sort of. The last difficulty that we've discussed previously, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, is defective astral vision. This is so common that it doesn't hurt to talk about it again. It is very common, and it's happened to me more times than I can remember, where I've left my body and either my vision was immediately very dim, very gray, very blackish, or I was blind altogether. Many people report the same thing. The best way to handle that is, number one, get as far away from your physical body as possible. Putting that distance between your physical body usually will cause your astral vision to start dialing in. If that does not happen, the best thing that I have done in the past is I say, as using my every bit of energy and concentration I have, I say, I want my astral sight now and I want it to be sharp, or some variation of that. That happens all the time. Now, keep in mind that I think psychologically, if you project in the daytime, I think psychologically it has an effect on making it easier for your astral sight to work properly. I don't believe that there is any actual physical effect. Using the word physical is funny, but I don't believe there's any direct causal correlation between projecting in the daytime or the nighttime, because we're dealing with the astral here. But I believe that subconsciously we have an easy time knowing that we can see in the daytime. But at nighttime, sight becomes more problematic. So that's just a couple different tips there you can use to dial in your vision. Okay, well that's the video for this week. So you've got some challenges there. Part of the way to deal with any problem or challenge is to be aware that it exists, first of all, that it is normal, that not only you, but many others have encountered the very same situation. And I've given you some nice little tips there as to how to deal with or minimize at least some of these problems, some of these challenges. If you liked this video, please hit the like button. Share it with those of like mind. Subscribe if you haven't already. Ring that bell if you have subscribed. And please continue to leave questions and comments. I love those things, and I know everyone else at Astral Club enjoys reading them as well. Once again, if you are moved to contribute to Astral Club, check out the description area and you'll see a link to the Astral Club Patreon. And as always, I'm Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.